Now that we have everybody here, I want to welcome everybody to the Secondary Heroes Artist Alley here on the Nerds Unite Network. My name is Prague, and here with us today we have DC Comics legend Alex Sinclair with us. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate the legend word.
Heck yeah, man. I've been following your work for a very long time, and you're always one of my favorite people to talk to at cons, so it's great to have you on our show. And I'm sure our fans will appreciate it too. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to hanging out with the fans and chatting with them.
Nice. Absolutely, yeah, we have a whole bunch of people coming in here saying hi and being all excited, it looks like. Before we do that, let's introduce everyone else who's here, part of the Secondary Heroes. Josh, you want to go first?
Hi, my name is Josh.
Do you want me to go next there, Trevor?
By all means.
I'm DeLorean Wolfgang or Alex.
I was already introduced by Alex.
Oh, were you? Okay, well, there you go.
It's Trevor.
It is Trevor. Well, welcome, guys. So we're going to start off here. We're going to ask them a few questions, but if you guys want to start in the chat asking questions, feel free to answer to put them in there now. We'll be
I'll just give it a eye on it.
Yeah, Josh will be our
two Alexes should be fun. Yes.
Two Alexes, I know. Hold on. We'll call him DeLorean.
Yeah, we'll just keep
DeLorean.
Yes, you'll be DeLorean.
I mean,
is it Alex? There you go.
Is it because of the car?
Oh, sure. Nice show off. So
can that be Ferrari or
yeah, there you go.
or Lamborghini?
Right?
You got to get one of those big mustaches and a Hawaiian shirt, and you'd be perfect for one of those '80s ones, man.
Well, I had a monster one, and I just got sick of it, and I shaved it.
Yeah,
I did the whole quarantine beard, and people would say, like, yeah, you should be driving a Ferrari in the 80s. I'm like, all right, I'm taking this thing.
Maybe I shouldn't do that.
I will have one of those one day, my friend.
One of those. Well, anyway, welcome, sir. So for those of those in the chat that don't know much about you and your background, tell us about kind of like how you started getting into art.
I always loved art. As a kid, watching cartoons, my brother and I would always like watch whatever cartoon or show we were watching. We'd like sit down and start to draw like what we just watched or what we just read comic book wise. So we collected comics from very early on and would really like read them, draw them, read them again, buy the next one, read it, draw it, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And so art was kind of ingrained in me, and especially comics. And so in high school, I decided I was going to study art. And at that point, it was going to be art. I was going to paint and hopefully sell my stuff in galleries. And right around that time is when Dark Knight came out. Frank Miller's Dark Knight. And I was like, oh, man, this is incredible. It's like, I would love to be able to do this. If I can use my art in the comic book industry, that would be incredible. Yeah. And so my portfolio really just flipped. I used to do these underwater wildlife watercolor paintings in college. And then all of a sudden, the Hulk and Captain America and Batman started showing up in my portfolio. And my professor was like, what's going on? So I told him that, I had really been bit by the bug. And so I was exploring that artistically. And sure enough, a couple of years out of college is when Wildstorm had, or it wasn't even Wildstorm then, it was still Homage Studios, had a talent search. It was Wildcats #2, had an ad talent search for, writers, pencilers, inkers, colorists. And by that point, I'd been showing my portfolio around and getting critiqued in my pencils, getting critiqued in my inks. And every portfolio review ended with the words, but I really like your colors. So it took me a little bit to cue to the fact that they weren't critiquing that. They were just really accepting it as good work. And so I just sent color work, and Jim called within a week and offered me a spot in the studio. And I came in, and that was 28 years ago.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So I've been with Homage. That became Wildstorm. That got bought over by DC. Right. And then I worked there up until 2006, and then I left, and I've been freelance ever since.
Right. Well, yeah. What's it like getting a call from Jim?
It's hey, this is Jim Lee, and you're like, okay, which one of my friends is
breaking me today?
But he keeps talking, and that's when you realize, oh crap, it really is Jim Lee, and he starts asking all these questions. You're like, that'd be great, sure.
Right.
He could have probably, you probably said, "Can you work for free?" And I would be like, "Sure, let's do this."
Nice.
Why not, man? Why not? Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's been great. I mean, there's a reason why I'm still around. I still love working with DC. I'm exclusive with them right now. Have been since I left the studio. So I really enjoy working with them. And Jim's been nothing but amazing, as initially as a mentor, and then as a friend, and now as a colleague. I owe him so much.
Yeah, he seems like a real great leader in the industry, for sure.
Yeah, super generous guy too, in every aspect of his life.
Nice. Now, when you were starting out and you're submitting these stuff in your portfolio, what were you using for your coloring at that time?
So the internet didn't really exist. So
right.
Fortunately, some of the studios were releasing these ash cans, and they were basically photocopied, reduced versions of the books. So I would then photocopy them up and then do marker renderings of them, because digital coloring was barely in its infancy, and in fact, I was brought in to the studio to be to help create a coloring system through a digital coloring system for the studio.
Okay.
Wild, man. So and that was scanning them in. Now, were you, because I know that we spoke to another artist a couple weeks back. Actually, Prague, you might remember who that was. But he said that he would scan and fax like his images over, and people would paint different colors on them, and he would be able to choose what colors and what. I forgot who that was. But do you go through that process with other like painters and whatnot, or do you pretty much do from point A all the way to the end?
So for the work that I do nowadays, I get the inks from either the inker or the penciler inker, and like with Jim and Scott, I still get the boards and I scan them here. But from DC, I get the digital files and I just color. I read the script for the story stuff, and I just color, and I send JPEGs. Once it's done, I send JPEGs to our editor, the writer, and the artist on the book. I definitely believe in that collaborative process, that it's all our work, and so we all share it. And I love working in that team mentality, where when it comes out, it's a product of 6-7 people who've been kind of working together to get this thing out there.
Yeah, I think it was Mick Gray that we had on.
That's who it was.
Yeah, who was talking
Mick's a great guy.
about that. Yeah, he's just a great guy, great storyteller.
I love him. I love Mick.
Character as well.
Character, yeah, that's for sure. Now, one thing that happened, I think it was just only a few years ago, that people were fighting to get the colorist name on the front cover of the books, which surprised me that it wasn't even sooner than that.
Yeah, well, I've been fighting that battle for years, because we came from a studio that was creator driven, like Wildstorm, and when DC took over, it was just really a kind of a shock of mentalities going on, because since I was one of the early colorists, I was getting credited, I was getting royalties, and then when DC took over, that all just stopped. So it was years and years of me really just kind of knocking on that door. Why aren't we getting royalties? Why aren't we getting royalties? And it really came down to a couple people of the higher ups that were stamping it down. So once Jim and Dan Didio took over, that changed immediately.
Awesome. Yeah.
And so the two main things that came out of that were we started getting credited on the covers, and those of us that were exclusive and worked on books that could afford it started getting royalties for our work.
Well, good. I think that's
amazing,
well deserved, especially when you have you who work on some of these huge titles, over the years, and FCO who works on the big titles. You guys don't get it. It's weird to me, all the work you put into it and not get those royalties. So I'm glad that happened.
Yeah, thankfully the mentality changed, and they realized that. And true to what once coloring went digital and the digital platform really improved, we did become more of a collaborator to the art. When in the past I understood, pre-digital, the coloring process was a very simple thing to do, very easy to replicate. But more and more as we've come to this point, it's really artists are the ones that are getting hired to be colorists, because we need to be able to contribute to the piece of art that's coming down the line.
There you go.
Wow.
Very well said.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
Josh, do we got some questions from the chat?
Our fans.
Yeah, we have one from Benjamin. He asks if Alex could draw anything besides DC or even Marvel, what would he draw? What would he like to draw?
So I still paint and draw for myself, and when I do, it's never a comic book character or scene or anything. I love wildlife, so I do a lot of. I've actually returned to red-eyed tree frogs and whales. I do a lot of like zoo animals. I taught art classes at the San Diego Zoo here for a few years, and that kind of fed my love for drawing wildlife. So when it's for me, it's going to be an animal. It's not going to be Batman or Spider-Man or whoever. Really, it's almost like I do the heroes all day, every day. And the last thing I want to do is keep doing it.
Keep doing it, yeah.
I'm scrolling through your Instagram right now and seeing some of your wildlife stuff of like the whales and stuff. It almost looks, in a way, it looks like it's a calming. It's very because you take. I'm looking at your superheroes and it's like you've got so much going on. It's craziness.
And look at this whole picture here.
And then it's like, here's a whale.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome, man. I love that.
Yeah, it is like therapy. It's like I can take my time with it. I don't have a deadline for it. It's organic, and I choose mediums that are chaotic, so pastels and watercolors and charcoals that I can't control, because when I color digitally, I control every facet of it at every moment. So I want the medium to almost force me to stay on my toes and to almost like talk back.
That's awesome.
And so you're based in San Diego?
Thank you. I am. I've been here most of my life now. Moved here when I was 15.
And so have you noticed how big of a difference it is this year without Comic-Con in town?
Yeah, you can feel it's usually the people who live here who aren't like huge comic book fans, you know, they still go downtown because they still want to go see the fans or whatever they want to call us. But they do take the time to go to, you know, have dinner downtown and then people watch.
Oh yeah.
And there's friends of mine that are always like, hey, how's Comic-Con? You're always at Comic-Con? What do you do for Comic-Con? So this year I told all of them, hey, if you guys want to go, I can get you in this year.
There's no lines. It's going to be great. It's easy on you.
It's free.
Actually, it's funny.
It's free.
So I'm also located in San Diego, and I'm scrolling through your Instagram, and like I see some of the places that you have attended, and I'm like, oh, I was there for that. Oh, I was there for that. That's awesome. Cool. Like for instance, the parade. I was actually in that parade, that Rancho San Diego parade.
Oh yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Was that the one you drove around in your DeLorean?
Of course. I'm not going to do it just as myself. Nobody cares about me.
Are you saying you're nothing without your car?
You got it, brother.
Very nice. Any other questions there, Josh?
Sure. We have one from Geek Together. They say, can you discuss your work with the Comic Pro Bootcamp?
Of course. I would love to. A couple years back, Ryan Benjamin, Will Portasio, Carlos Dianda, and I basically got together and thought, you know, we're kind of getting long in the tooth, and we loved how Jim really brought in that next generation of artists into comics, and has actually been responsible for so many new generations of artists that we thought, why don't we kind of, as a kind of thank you, try and do that for those people who don't have access to a studio. Why don't we kind of pass on everything we've learned through the years in a kind of a course. And pre-COVID, we would actually do 3-day seminars where we'd book it at a hotel, and you could come. If you were from out of town, you could stay in that hotel. But it was like a grinder kind of. It was really a boot camp. So you'd come in, we do 5 hours on Friday, 10 hours on Saturday, like 6 hours on Sunday of work. But it's hands-on work where you know, you come in and it's like, here's your assignment. We're going to do a cover and thumbnails. You have 2 hours to come up with 5 thumbnails. And then once that's done, you move on to layouts. and then pencils, and then inks, and then colors. And we're sitting there teaching and then letting them do it. And then we're critiquing it as they're doing it and adjusting it as they're doing it. And so it's a really cool studio kind of environment where you're getting feedback immediately.
Right.
So when COVID started, we had to figure out how can we make this still work. And so through the use of Zoom, we do 1 day of instruction. We give them homework based on the lesson that we taught. And then 2-3 days later, we come back and we critique their work. And so we have different varieties of classes where it's simple shapes. So very beginning stuff. And now we're doing advanced stuff where it's storytelling, drawing a fight scene, creating a palette for a scene, all that stuff where folks are kind of advancing through it and getting more information. And it's been great because we've been seeing a lot of repeat students, and we've seen a lot of growth from a lot of them. So it's been great to see that happening. So I love doing that, and it's great. And anyone can take it. We have our website is comicprobootcamp.com, and you can go check out what we have. And we're always kind of launching new sets of classes as the old ones, and we relaunch.
Well, it seems like it's going to be more accessible this way now, if it is online.
It is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we're teaching to folks, and we had a couple students from Germany and Canada that we probably wouldn't have if we were still doing in studio stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, very nice. That was a great question. Good question from DC Together, and they are very big DC fans, by the way.
Yeah, and so, you know, the years of experience that Ryan and Wills and Carlos and I bring to it is huge. I mean, Wills is like legend in comics, and we all look up to him. Yep. So to sit there, I sit there during the lessons, and I'm like listening and going like, oh man, that's a great tip. So I've learned so much from them about penciling and inking by just sitting there in the room and listening to them. And you know, it's like you go home, you're like, oh, I got to try that.
It's kind of fun amazing. that you still can learn, you know, year after year. You know, you're always learning.
Yeah, no, that's the best part.
Now, I know with a lot of the other artists that we've had on here, everybody's got a different media or process. Do you have are you on Photoshop, Procreate, or are you still happy with pen and paper?
For coloring for print, it's gonna be, if I'm at home, it's on my computer with Photoshop. When I'm on the road, I'll use Procreate on the iPad.
Nice. Okay.
But it always makes its way back to Photoshop for printing prep. I have to make sure that the separation process is consistent from page 1 through page 20 of every book. So I need to make sure that I feed it back through the same system.
Right.
But I use both. I've tried many others, and it's just, I think, you know, I've been on Photoshop since version 2.0.
Oh,
which is, if that doesn't age me, then nothing else can. So, you know, I've definitely been on Photoshop when there were no layers. There were no multiple undos, no quick masks. You know,
the history tab.
No history. I mean, it's stuff of nightmares, because if you're making this gigantic selection and you accidentally double click, you just lost it because you had the one undo.
Right.
So it was very, and the machines back then, you know, 30 years ago, your phone's faster than the computer I was using back then.
Yep. Right. Yeah.
It's insane where we've come with technology.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so true. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. That makes sense. When did you transition from like the pen and marker to digital? Like, when did that happen?
When I stepped into the Wildstorm office.
Wow. You've been with it that long. Wow.
Yeah. So they came in. They're like, look, you know, we love your hand samples, but we're going digital. Right. And that's actually what Jim asked me on the interview on the phone. He was like, do you know what Photoshop is? And I said, actually, I don't know. He's like, well, do you know what the lasso tool is? And I had those Mac Classics, the black and white little fish tank.
Yep, I've had those.
And it had a super paint program that had a lasso and a pencil and a bucket tool. And he asked me, you know what the pencil is? Yeah. You know what the bucket is? Like, well, why don't you come in? You should be able to figure it out. And they kind of gave me this book, and they say, hey, you know, why don't you sit in front of it for a week and see if you can pick up the program? So I really just kind of went in and just like, what does this do? And what does that do? And what does this do? And I would look it up.
Amazing,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
let me try that. So I taught myself Photoshop like in a week.
Okay.
And then like, okay, so let's see if we can make it, paint with this and try and replicate painting. So it was kind of cool being back there. I think, if I knew then what I know now and try and get a job, I wouldn't be able to get it because everybody's so advanced digitally with programs and apps and all that stuff. That I was fortunate that no one else knew it. I was just someone else that didn't know it, but I was willing to put in the work to learn it.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Josh, I know that I saw a couple more questions come through. Did you want to grab those?
Sure. Yeah, so this one's from Damien because it's Flash related. He says, besides Flash, what is your favorite character to work on?
Well, Batman's always been my favorite character to read, to draw, to work on. But over the years, like Flash has been great. I've enjoyed the run that I did on Green Lantern, starting with Blackest Night, and I jumped on the Green Lantern book with New 52. I love doing the constructs. Just kind of, I love characters that challenge me like that. So the Flash is, how do you make him look like he's moving? Stuff that kind of pushes you as an artist. But Batman's always been my favorite. I'm loving my run on Superman right now because Brian is writing one heck of a story and Ivan is drawing it out of his mind.
Nice,
and so
yeah.
all that stuff really inspires you because you see the pencils and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to color that. And then you see it inked, you're like, oh sweet. And then, I'm up. So it's funny how my favorite character is just kind of, it's almost like the one I'm on right now because I'm so excited about the projects that I'm working with. I'm working with Amanda on Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey.
Nice.
And it's a black label book, so they're being a little bit more mature about the stuff that they're drawing and writing for it. So that it's kind of cool that we're taking Harley and then we're kind of pushing her to where Jimmy and Amanda really wanted to.
Oh,
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
sorry, go ahead.
Friend of the show, Hey M. Rosario, not Hey Mr. Rosario, just so you guys know. Mark
Hey,
asked,
Mr. Rosario? No?
how do you find the perfect color palette for the covers and art pieces you work on?
The covers is, I just have to be mindful of what I've done in the previous covers for that issue. But sometimes when I get a cover, it just I can just kind of see the color scheme. Other times I do struggle, and if I do struggle, I'll just kind of color sketch over it, to see if something organic happens, and then I have a breakthrough. But it's really sometimes it's story related, and of course the characters' costumes dictate a lot of what I'm going to have to do. So if there's a character with a lot of blue, I need to make sure that I contrast it with some warm colors or something like that. So a lot of that. The stories, the script will dictate a lot of the ambient lighting, the time of day. And other than that, I just kind of what I'm feeling, what color I kind of like at the moment, or a color that I hate doesn't show up, that kind of stuff. It really is a lot of what I feel will contribute to the storytelling. Is the main decision maker in that process.
So there is a way in Photoshop to kind of make sure that, like, say for example, this scene behind me has like a certain color to the sky, that the same tint is seen throughout the whole issue, or do you just kind of have to wing it?
Well, no, I use the same colors. So
you do, okay.
So when I color a scene, I use that same palette throughout, from page 1 through page X or whatever it is that we're running on. Just very mindful of the colors that I use, so that it's consistent.
Nice. All right. That's some good questions there. What about another one, Josh?
I don't see any right now, but
a lot of praise for your work. That we have a lot of fans in our chat that are big DC fans. They love your work.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
A lot of them are sent. They like the 80th anniversary Wonder Woman issues that you did. They really like the covers.
That was from Gary.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
He's a huge Wonder Woman fan.
That cover was probably one of the hardest covers I've ever had to do. That triptych cover variant that we did for Torpedo Comics was so hard because we had 3 Wonder Women and multiple characters and villains in the background, and there was all these levels of separation that had to happen, and so my brain was exhausted after that. That was definitely one of those where I think I worked for less than minimum wage because I really worked through a lot of obstacles.
Wow.
Well, it worked out because it looks amazing. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Is there a piece that you would feel that you're just most proud of? Like something
means something to you at least.
Yeah, that means something to you. Yeah.
A lot of, we're known for Hush, so anything that's Batman Hush, I'm very close to it because I love that. Cover wise, there's been like some of the Hush covers, like the Batman and Nightwing. I think that's 617 where they're running at you. That's one of a fun cover. This last Wonder Woman one that I just spoke about is definitely up there. We did a variant for the Flash. I think it was New 52 Flash that Jim Scott and I worked on, where he's running through and I did some crazy effect stuff on there.
Oh yeah.
And that was, for whatever reason, that one really sticks out for me, and I really like it. And then the our Justice League run, Jim drew some crazy cool covers. There's an Aquaman cover where the art shows up everywhere. Those, issue 12 covers with Superman and Wonder Woman flying and kissing and holding each other.
That was very big. Yeah, broke the internet.
Those are cool because, those are, because it's you're conveying a different moment, an emotion in the comic book where it's usually action and powers and punching, and to convey like an intimate moment like that is very cool to do. But then again, it's a challenge because, how do I like this so it doesn't look over the top, so that it looks like it's intimate,
right?
A lot of that stuff really stands out.
Now, did you know working on Hush while you were working on it that it was going to be as big of a deal as it has become?
We kind of had an idea because it just felt right. Everything felt right. Everything looked right. If I had just turned in like an issue and I was burnt out, I walked down the hall and I looked at what Jim was drawing or what Scott was inking, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's do the next one.
Nice.
So Jim was firing on all cylinders, and was so far ahead of the book that there was no stress about deadlines.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So that we just kind of went from one to the next and one to the next, and there was really a lot of just that it just felt right.
Okay.
So I've experienced that same feeling with some other projects, so it's kind of cool to be in it and go, this feels cool. This looks great. Yeah. And it's great to see that actually happens, and the fans accept it as much, and they think that much of it. So it's a cool feeling to have, and to know that even 15 years later, people are still bringing that book up. Hey, I love Hush. Hey, this is the first thing I read as a kid. Sometimes that makes you feel really old, but that's a cool thing.
I feel like that was just yesterday I read that, but all right.
It's the first comic book I ever read. It's like,
oh, Jesus.
That's cool books live forever. You can come across those.
Yeah. Please tell me you were 30 when you first read your first comic book.
Please tell me you were. No, I always like that question because you just kind of have to wonder what you think as a creative person to know that you are creating what is, like a masterpiece, Yeah. That's kind of.
It's nice. Cool. You do feel it. It just feels right. Everything is just it's just working perfectly.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm I'm on your site and I saw that you actually did the Comic-Con the Comic-Con souvenir book.
Yes.
Yeah, and that is, that's bringing in a bunch of different properties into one, which is fantastic. It's beautiful because I'm a huge fan of the Turtles, so seeing that with like Batman and Superman and Captain Marvel, it's really cool to see all that stuff come together like that. So it's sad that there's not more of that stuff for this year. It was kind of weird seeing Jim draw the Turtles and Hellboy and
all these characters, and of course he didn't draw Wolverine, right? And everybody's like, how come there's no Wolverine? You're like, hey, Marvel dictated what characters they wanted to see in the book, and we had to get it approved by everybody. So Marvel had to approve their characters, and Todd had to approve Spawn, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And so it was a longer process to get it together because there were so many cooks in that kitchen. But again, it was, when Jim and Scott are on the art is.
Yeah, if they say they want to draw my character, go ahead.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely going to be well drawn.
Yeah. Very nice. Nice find there, Alex.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I think I might have that souvenir book. So yeah.
Oh, I do too. I have like my stack of years worth of souvenir books. There's so much great art in those books, so you might as well keep them.
Yeah. And I think the artwork got donated to Comic-Con. So
museum?
They own the
Oh, that's fantastic. So I see that we got a question from Gary. Is there an artist that you have not worked with yet that you would love to work with?
There's a few. You have your little like bucket list of artists that you want to work with, and some of them you're like, oh, that might never happen. Let's see, that I would love to work with that I've never worked with. Alan Davis. We did like a pinup for Wildstorm ages ago, but I'd love to work on a book with him because he's incredible. Jorge Jimenez right now is hot, and his art is so incredible. I would love to collaborate with him on something. Lee Weeks, Mike Mignola. But most of these artists are Marvel artists, so since I'm exclusive to DC, I don't get to work with them. So I'd love to collaborate with guys like that. I've had opportunities to do stuff with artists. Like I did a Joe Shuster Superman piece for the Comic Book Buyer's Guide. And, it's a name that you're like, that'd be cool to someday do a piece. Right. And someone discovered, like they found a piece of art of his that hadn't been ever published before. And they decided to use it for this. So, and they came to me to color it. And I was like, oh, heck yeah, I'll definitely work on that.
Oh, that's
color me excited. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. That's one of the pieces that, again, memorable cover. It's like how many people can say that nowadays they can work with him.
Yeah.
So that was actually a very cool moment. Yeah.
Yeah, Gary says, I love Jorge Jimenez. So there you go. Yeah. Would be
yeah, he's incredible. There's a lot of really great young artists coming into the industry. And so that excites me as a colorist because I'd love to work with him or her.
Sure.
So definitely, my list, I thought I was doing a great job of making my list smaller, and then all these artists are coming in. It's like,
new guys.
I gotta add. Yeah.
Well, very nice. What's it like?
Cool,
before we got on here today, we were actually admiring everything in what's behind you. And you had those Kotobukiya, Justice League from 52. Like, what's it like seeing your stuff kind of in real life, like actually come to life and have it in your room and live with it?
It's cool. I mean, it's cool to see it. And you're like, oh man, they did a great job with that. And then so it's almost like I definitely would want to buy it too, because at heart I'm still a fan too. So it's cool to see it. My kids tend to call me from different stores. Hey, did you do this?
That's cool.
Yeah, that was so they enjoy that facet of it as well. It's fun to see it. It's fun for them to experience it that way as well.
Did you have anything to do with it? Like, did they actually call you in and be like, hey, is this color right? Or can you do the package work for it or anything like that?
Not really.
Okay.
They basically work off the final piece of art that we send in, so that they're not allowed to alter it. They really, for the most part, they stay true to it.
Nice.
So there have been some times where I see something in the wild and I'm like, oh yeah, someone really messed that up,
right.
Or they
right.
they skewed the color scheme and it's off. So, but I probably am one of 2-3 people that would look at it and go, yeah, that's not what I did.
Right? So that's not quite Alex Sinclair there, but all right. That's pretty funny.
Josh, you want to jump in there with the Geek G other question?
Yeah. Sure. We have what advice would you give someone that wanted to get started in comics as a career, specifically in coloring?
So if you want a career in coloring, study color theory. That's a main thing. But also study art. I mean, learn to draw, because you're to be able to color, you have to be able to render, you have to be able to shade, highlight, and create atmospheric perspective and all that stuff. So learn art, and then coloring can definitely be something that you aspire to use as your specialty. And as you practice coloring, color over other artists, not just your own art. Because when you color over other artists, you can focus on just the color. And so that when I color my own stuff, I'm fixing what I messed up in the pencils and inks with the color. And so that when you color someone else, you can just focus on the color. And when you're showing that work to someone, they realize, oh, okay, that's Jim Lee pencils, it's got inks, and this is your color, so that I can just focus on that part of it. So definitely, it's the same advice goes for inkers: ink other artists, so like that you're doing the job that you're supposed to, interpreting someone else's work, not your own. And again, because as an inker, you're fixing what you really messed up in the pencils or what you forgot to do in the pencils and that kind of thing. So do what the trait is meant to do, and work in collaboration with someone else.
Very nice. Yeah, I know there's a lot of artwork out there that you can actually probably even download off Google that's, uncolored, it's just the inks. So it's probably easier for them.
It's all over the place. Yeah. DeviantArt has great archives of pencils and inks. And so I definitely recommend that you look through there. A lot of people put their stuff up and say, here, color this or ink this and show it to me.
Now, your kids, have you tried to bring that to them to be more artistic and be more into their art side like you?
So they've all drawn or painted growing up. Factor School had a really great parent-taught art program, and I got to go and teach them art when they were kids. But I never pushed them to do it as a career. I really wanted them to discover that and realize that that's what they wanted to do. So my oldest is a lawyer. My second oldest, she graduated with an English degree with a focus in poetry. So she's doing a different kind of creative output. Our third daughter is going to be a history major. She wants to teach history. And my youngest looks like she's the one, she wants to design cars. So she's studying art.
Great form of art right there.
Yeah.
Well, she loves cars. She loves drawing them. She knows by the hum of the engine what kind of car just went by. So she loves them and she loves to draw. So I just told her, I'm like, well, why don't you do that?
Yeah.
And so she definitely is following the artistic side. So we'll see how she ends.
She should work with Sean Murphy.
Oh, I'm guessing that's it right there. Here's a car for you to draw. Draw this car right here.
No, so this is Jamie. She is the history major.
Oh, history major. Oh, wrong kid. Sorry.
But she draws a ton. So she has a couple accounts. She's got a main art account. Yeah. Nice. She got an art account on Instagram, and she's actually starting to sell stickers through it. So
awesome.
Stickers are hot right now. Yeah.
She's making some money as an artist.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. Seriously. Yeah. Yeah. Sticker Mule. They helped us out. So.
Nice.
Sorry. I know that. Let's see. I thought I saw some more questions. Josh, did you?
I got some. Yeah. So these are from Damien. He says, working with legends like Jim Lee, particularly when you first started, is there added pressure to ensure their work, that your work comes through?
Right. So working with someone like Jim it's like a blessing and a curse, right? It's a blessing because you get to work with Jim. So you know that the art's going to be like spot on, perfect, gorgeous. And so the challenge becomes that your work has to be just as good. Otherwise, people are going to notice it. So, but to become better, you got to, work with the best or as athletes, you want to play against the best to get better. So as a collaborator, you want to work with artists like Jim or like Ivan, whose artwork is so detailed, so solid that it pushes you as an artist to have to perform at that level. So I love working with guys like that. And each artist brings a different challenge with them. And that's, I think, what's cool as someone like colorist, where we get to work with multiple artists, that we get to kind of flex a different kind of muscle depending on who we're working with.
Nice.
Did you ever get harsh feedback or anything from DC, or are they just kind of like, oh, just do your thing, we trust you?
for the most part, we trust you. Any edits that come down, most of the time are, oh, so-and-so's eyes are actually brown, not blue.
Gotcha.
Or,
okay.
Yeah. So and tweaks that I get from Jim or the artists are like little tweaks, but I know that if they're seeing it, it's something that's definitely really important that needs to be addressed. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
And for
Very
those
nice.
watching right now who aren't familiar with the distinction between colorist and art and inker and the whole comic book process, can you go a little more into that?
Of course. A penciler will get the script from the writer and then basically draw what the writer has just written, page to page, panel to panel. A book is usually about 20 pages, and so the script will for the most part say page 1, panel 1, this is what's happening in this panel, and include the dialogue that's going to be in page 1, panel 2, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so the artist is drawing what the writer is describing, and being mindful of how much dialogue is going in, so that they can definitely leave room for these balloons that are going to be produced later on, because the artist doesn't draw the balloons in. Once the penciler is done drawing a page or a cover, he or she then sends it to the inker, and then the inker will then interpret the pencils in ink. So in my opinion, inking probably the hardest of all the specialties, because you're taking grays and whites and darks and making them to black and white. So some inkers, I mean, I work with some of the best, like Scott Williams, and the way he interprets Jim's pencils is off the charts, and he uses multiple techniques with multiple tools, and then once the inks are done, they get scanned, and then they go digital, and the scan goes to the colorist and the letterer, and the letterer is going to start creating the word balloons based on the script to fit into the art, and then the colorist will then use programs like Photoshop or Procreate or Clip Studio to color the inks, and then we send our color file and the lettering file to a production office, and then they marry them together. They send them off to the printer. The printer prints it, binds it, ships it, and then the distributor sends it to the stores.
Nice. Awesome. That was a nice little question there, Trevor.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to put time on it, a good penciler can draw a page a day. A good inker can ink a page a day. A colorist can probably do about 3 to 5 pages a day. A letterer can do about half a book in a day. Probably a quarter of a book in a day, depending on how wordy it is. So that's, as you're reading issue 1, technically the penciler should be working on 3 and the inker's on 2, and I'm starting 2.
Wow.
In an ideal world.
Sure. As long as pages aren't stolen, right? Right.
So some pencilers tend to like to push to the end, and some inkers take a little bit longer, so that pushes it in. The only thing that happens is that my deadline, it still sits here, even though that oncoming traffic is moving at me. So I mean, it helps to be fast and efficient, and so over the years, I think I've been able to keep my job because I've been able to be a fast and efficient colorist.
Right.
Oh,
now, one question I've always kind of had, but I've never really asked the colorist before. So say, for example, behind me, I have Batman here, and you know, he has all this shadow and under the cape and everything. The inker is going to do a lot of that black work, but do you ever make anything darker when you color it? Like, do you go in there and ever like say, hey, this part needs more of a shadow, for example?
I'll definitely shade here and there, and definitely try to spotlight items. I will never shade something to the point that it's going to compete with the inks.
Okay.
I think that's definitely part of the collaborative piece, is like I want to make sure that the inker's work still stands out.
Okay.
It's still seen. And I think that's one of the don'ts of a colorist.
That's what I figured. I just always wondered about that.
Don't go so dark that the inks disappear or are hard to differentiate between your colors and their inks.
Nice.
It's amazing. Yeah. Wow.
Just real quick. I want to say thanks for coming on, Alex. I have to jump off. That's why. I gotta get ready for the next session, but it's nice chatting with you and getting to know you.
Just to run over to Ballroom 20. All right.
Yeah.
There you go. Good luck with the crowd.
Right? Yeah.
So Gary asks, do you change how you color depending on the artist you're coloring for?
Yeah, definitely. The palettes will actually be dictated mostly by the story. So that if I'm coloring Harley Quinn, I'm using these bright, expressive, fun colors. And then when I move over to Batman's Grave, it's a noir detective kind of story, and everything loses saturation. My palettes are very, very linear in that they're not as expansive as something like Harley Quinn. So I'm definitely, toning down the amount of colors that I'm using to help the mood of the story. So the palettes will definitely change. The rendering style will change slightly depending on the artist. So that the way I color Amanda is completely different than the way I color Jim. That Jim's hyper realistic, and so that I have to carve the rendering to match his rendering, and where Amanda's is a little more open, I can be a little bit more playful with how I'm coloring. Her style is a little more cartoony, so then I can definitely push things like expressions or colors. So I definitely adapt depending on who I'm coloring, styles, but mostly the palette is what's going to change.
Okay.
So, I mean, really, you got to be a jack of all trades in that sense of really being able to change with cover to cover to cover.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Now, are you ever working on two books at the same time?
Yeah, it's happened where I have to ping pong, and that's hard because you do like 6 pages of one artist, and then that next page is from someone else. That page is going to be really slow because it's almost like you're deprogramming yourself to go to a different style. Right. Yeah.
Huh. I can imagine.
Yeah.
So a question just came up. What are the figures or items on the top shelf behind you? It seems you're a collector of sorts.
I am. Yeah. If you could get a look at my office, you'd probably freak out. So let's see. You can see the Captain America from Sideshow. I've had that for quite a few years. The Justice League, that is based on the first piece of artwork that we created for the New 52 Justice League. These are all busts from Boeing Designs, and they're all different heroes. Up here on the top here, you can see my Inkpot Award that the Comic-Con gave me a couple of years back, which
awesome.
That's probably one of my favorite things that's on my shelf. You can see the lanterns from Blackest Night that DC Direct created. And then there's some artwork in the back from some of my favorite artists, recent artists. So Mark Ratz, Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
One of my high school friends is an artist there. She paints wildlife too. So we're kindred spirits that way. There's a Dustin Nguyen.
Oh, I love
Super Sons.
Yes.
The Super Sons cover. And
that's the actual cover.
Yes, that's the original.
Oh,
I'm jealous, man.
And then some Batman, Superman bookends. What else do I have? I have a huge Batman collection.
Nice.
So I have a lot of.
As do I.
1/6 scale figures, statues. There's a couple of giant statues on the top of my desk that my wife hates.
Oh. Yeah, we talked about that before we came on, and how she doesn't want them in the rest of the house.
No.
Darn.
I keep trying to move it into the middle of the house, and she won't let me.
One
of these days, I'm going to put it as a centerpiece of our dinner table. Let's see what she says.
Yeah, so that is.
Hey, dude, it sounds like we're in the same boat. All my collectibles and everything stay in the garage, and the house is pretty much all hers. So, yeah, I know that feeling.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, I've been collecting for years, and my office is very indicative of how long I've been collecting. And there's little things like Norm and Cliff from Cheers. It's my favorite TV show.
Norm.
I got to see one of the show taped live when it was still on television. So
that's awesome.
It's one of my favorite moments. I have the ticket signed by Ted Danson. That's here in my office too. So,
that's fantastic.
Was it like a famous episode, or like anything memorable, or was it just?
It was one of the last 5 episodes that ever got recorded, and it was the one where Woody runs for office.
Dang,
yes.
man.
I just finished. I literally just finished watching every episode of Cheers from every season. Like I started with episode 1 and just finished all the episodes in there. I ended up falling in love. I actually have the proto of Cliff holding the beer. I went to
you
go
do?
see
That's awesome.
Yeah, I actually have it with my whiskeys. Because my wife is pregnant right now, so I had to pack up all my whiskeys and get them out of the house because me and my wife are big whiskey drinkers. So it's in one of my whiskey boxes. So I keep it with my like real expensive whiskeys. But yeah, I love Cliff. Cliff is like one of my favorite characters. I hated that he got beat up on so much in that show.
Oh, but it's fun. That's what made it fun.
No, yeah. I know.
I remember as a kid watching the episode where he like parked in front of, I think, his own driveway and got like the ticket or something from the cop. And I was like, is that really a thing? Like, I couldn't understand like that it was illegal to do that to your own house. And even as a kid, I couldn't understand it. And as an adult, I don't think that's actually a real thing. But one of those random memories from my childhood.
Yeah, they goofed around a lot on that show. I loved it.
Yeah,
for sure. But that's amazing that you actually got to be on that show.
Yeah.
Or I mean, in the audience.
I was just watching. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we're actually going through Frasier now. So we finished
Frasier's
Cheers, and now we're going through Frasier.
Yeah, it's a good show. Yeah, they announced that taping that Kelsey Grammer was starting his own show, a spin-off, and that he was taking the Frasier character into his own show. So it was cool.
Yeah.
Well, that was cool. The thing. He was like, he became just such a awesome character on Cheers. Like, I couldn't wait for him to show up because I knew it was going to be something really great. Sorry, we just turned into Cheers podcast now, so I hope everybody.
I'm happy.
What's this about DC art? Right? Now, do you ever do like fan art like that? Like, say, like you really love Cheers. Do you ever like just draw a character?
You know, I've never done any Cheers stuff. I've drawn like Star Trek and Star Wars stuff. I
nice.
You know, I'm a fan, so I've drawn and painted that kind of stuff, but nothing like. I mean, that's actually a great question. I should do something because I love that show so much.
Yeah, it'd be kind of fun to do that.
Yeah, but, Cliffy's still around. You could get him to sign it or something.
Right?
I know.
That would be awesome.
If we ever go back to conventions and he's at any show that I'm at, I'm bringing my ticket with me so he can put his signature on it.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
So out of all of the cons, I mean, do you have like a favorite outside of San Diego Comic-Con?
San Diego is a beast, and San Diego is work. And I think the reason I love WonderCon is because it's San Diego with a kind of relaxed atmosphere. So I love San Diego. San Diego was, WonderCon, because it reminds me of what San Diego used to be when it was a smaller show before Hollywood stepped in and exploded it. And I appreciate that it's been exploded because it really got us out there into the mainstream. And so.
Well, it took nerd culture and turned it into something more mainstream. Like,
that's what it did.
Like comic books used to be for geeks, but now it's like everybody has to have a comic book now.
Definitely. And so I appreciate what San Diego has done. And like I said, it's blown up so much that it's become like a working weekend. I was joking around with some friends. It's like, I can't believe it's Friday and I'm not stressed to the gills because it never fails. I always have a crazy deadline that butts up to San Diego, or
a lot of artists
goes
do
right to San Diego.
That's
so
ridiculous.
It's been nice to be able to stay up to date with work and celebrate Comic-Con. There's other shows that I really enjoy. I mean, what I love is that international shows have started inviting us. Like Scott and I have been invited to a few shows internationally, and so we love visiting Australia and doing shows there. We went to Belgium, and I fell in love with Belgium because when they invited me, I was like, "Yeah, I'll go to Belgium. What the heck?" And then I went there and fell in love with the country. It's a gorgeous country, and I had a blast there. New York's a show that I do a lot. One of my daughters lives in Seattle, so I like doing Emerald City.
Nice.
My wife loves that there's shows everywhere because she's my +1 to every show that we fly to.
Nice. It's a free trip.
To explore the city.
And there's a show in Mexico City that I love going to. I have family who lives down there, so I get to go see them, and it's been
that's nice.
That's very cool, man.
Well, quickly before we wrap up, we have a friend
Sure.
of ours, friend of the show. Ed,
I'm glad you caught this.
He wanted to know, like, since you worked at Wildstorm Comics back in the day, did you happen to work on any of the Star Trek comics that came out?
So when the Star Trek comics, when we got the license for Star Trek comics, I was the art director at Wildstorm. Okay. When DC bought Wildstorm, one of the rules is that you couldn't work in the same department that you were freelancing with. So as a colorist, what the gang at Wildstorm did, and I love them for it, is they said, look, we're going to pull you out of coloring. You're going to still work for us. You're going to be an art director. Okay. And that way you can still freelance color on the side.
Nice.
And make more money for yourself that way.
Nice.
So,
okay.
What I did do for the Star Trek comics is I designed all the logo and the book designs for that. So I got to work on them at a different level.
Wow.
Which was a lot of fun because I'm a Star Trek fan too, and so it was very cool.
There you go.
To create something that's from a property that I really enjoyed.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, our buddy Ed, he is a huge Star Trek fan, so I'm sure he's already saying awesome. Yeah, he loves that stuff. So
cool. Yeah. Jamie, my daughter, is a huge Star Trek fan, so when she found out that I worked on Star Trek books, she's like, "What? You worked on Star Trek?" I'm like, "Come on!" It's like I worked on Batman and Superman.
Yeah, do you not realize like I worked on Hush, like and some Star Trek comic book? Well, we love what we love, right? I mean, if that's your fandom, of course, that makes sense.
Yeah, my mother-in-law had a similar reaction. For years, I worked in comics and shit, and for a couple of years, I worked on Funky Winkerbean, the Sunday strip, with Tom Baddock.
Yep.
And when she found out, she goes, "Oh my God, that's incredible! You're famous!" And I'm like, "Yeah,
hello,
I guess I am."
Yeah, sure. Oh, that's hilarious.
That's amazing.
Do you have to, Trevor? Do you have to go anywhere else from here? Do we pivot?
Yeah,
anywhere?
at the top of the hour, we're heading over to the Dorksman. That's where Josh went.
All right.
We're going to be talking about the Adult Swim panel.
Cool.
Alrighty.
All right. Well,
but Alex, thanks for joining us.
You. Yeah.
No, thanks for having me. I had a blast chatting with you guys.
Yeah, this is great to talk to artists.
Yeah, thanks. My Instagram, my Twitters are both at Sinclair. It's SINCCOLOR. So there's 2 C's in the middle.
Gotcha.
And those are the 2 platforms that I really post on the most.
Okay.
I don't have time to have a Facebook and a TikTok and whatever they're inventing next.
Right. Oh, come on, man. You're not going to do some dances on TikTok?
I was like, yeah, sure.
They'll go viral for different reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the wrong reasons, probably, huh?
Yes.
Very cool. Well, thanks again for joining us.
And thanks to everyone in the chat, too.
Guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks to everybody that came out. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to come out and listen to me ramble on.
There you go. Ramble on. All right, well, stay safe, man.
Take care, guys.
All right.
Everyone in the chat, we're going to